And a hectic Monday morning at Montgomery Hughes International Airport, one of the busiest on the East Coast. No one could have predicted the explosive encounter about to unfold. Among the roaring crowd, rolling suitcases, and never-ending flight announcements, an airport security officer's overreach would soon light a fuse. His target? A black passenger he wrongly accused, only to discover that this passenger was, in fact, the newly appointed Director of Passenger Relations, someone with the power to turn the tables completely. This story delves into abuse of authority, hidden biases, and the courage to stand up for what's right, proving that no uniform or badge can ever stand above fairness and dignity. Lucas Morgan is 36, African American, tall at around 6 feet, with a firm build and an unwavering gaze. Just a week ago, he took the role of Director of Passenger Relations at Montgomery Hughes International Airport, having built a reputation as a fixer at several smaller airports across the country. Known for his negotiation skills, ability to de-escalate conflict, and a determined stand against injustice, Lucas was precisely what this massive airport needed. He grew up in Westport, an underdeveloped suburban area where his parents, both public servants, instilled in him the power of education and self-respect. As one of the few students of color in his school, Lucas quickly learned that prejudice could strike in countless forms. Instead of succumbing to resentment, he used it as fuel to excel. After obtaining his business management degree with a focus on public administration, he took an entry-level role at a regional airport, working his way through various departments: customer service, cargo logistics, strategic communications. Lucas's knack for resolving disputes soon became legendary. When Montgomery Hughes International sought a new director of passenger relations, Lucas stood out. Confident, empathetic, and unafraid to call out flaws in the system, he impressed airport executives and clinched the role. His mission: ensure every passenger, no matter their background, is treated with respect. Little did he know he would soon be forced to prove his resolve in a showdown that tested his conviction to its core. It was around 8 a.m. The main concourse of Terminal A bustled with a constant flow of travelers. High glass ceilings reflected the hum of footsteps and the crackling speakers announcing delayed flights due to storms in the Midwest. Business people typed furiously on their phones, families wrestled with strollers, and staff navigated the tide of humanity with practiced efficiency. Dressed in a sharp gray suit and a navy tie, Lucas cut through the crowd. His ID badge read, Lucas Morgan, Director of Passenger Relations. As he walked the corridor connecting Terminals A and C, he paused now and then to make mental notes on signage placement or audio announcements. His phone vibrated. A message from Sandra Lee, his newly appointed assistant manager, flashed. "Boss, where are you? We've got a security issue at Terminal C. An officer is yelling at a passenger." Lucas typed back quickly. "On my way," then quickened his pace. This was more than just a routine complaint. The unsettling feeling in his gut warned him that something bigger might be brewing. By 8:15, Lucas arrived at the Terminal C security checkpoint. A chaotic scene greeted him. A long, frustrated line of passengers, some filming the encounter on their phones, while an imposing security officer stood, barking orders at an older couple. The name on his uniform read Bradley Jones. The woman, perhaps in her early 50s, clad in a floral dress, was clutching her purse anxiously. Beside her stood a man around her age, tense and watchful. Bradley Jones waved them aside with an authoritarian gesture. "I've told you both time and time again. Move over there and wait for TSA to do a secondary check. Stop blocking the line." When the wife tried to speak, Bradley cut her off. "Enough with the back talk. I can detain you right now for causing a disturbance." Lucas set his carry-on bag aside and approached. keeping his tone calm. "Good morning. Is there something I can help with? It looks like things are a bit tense." Bradley spun around, his voice harsh. "Who are you? Step back!" Nearby travelers looked on, phones at the ready, capturing the confrontation. Lucas maintained his composure. "I'm Lucas Morgan. I work for the airport. I was notified there was an issue here." Bradley's eyes narrowed. "Lucas Morgan? Doesn't matter to me. This is a security zone. Only TSA officers or airport police have jurisdiction here." Lucas recognized the hostility in Bradley's eyes. This was a man who took any challenge to his authority personally, possibly exacerbated by seeing Lucas, a black man, intervening. Lucas's heart pounded, but his voice stayed even. He'd learned long ago that calm was the best weapon. "Officer Jones, I do have authority regarding passenger relations. If these two travelers require extra screening, they still deserve respect. Right now, it appears you're threatening them. That's not protocol." Bradley's face reddened. "Don't lecture me. I was in law enforcement before this. I know a suspicious person when I see one. As for you, either stand down or I'll have security escort you from the premises." A few onlookers gasped or muttered in disbelief. Sandra Lee, who had just arrived, rushed to Lucas's side, whispering, "He's not backing down. Moments ago he was yelling at a mother with a baby stroller, too." Lucas nodded. "Could you take this couple to a different secondary checkpoint, please? Let's avoid making this worse." Sandra promptly guided the couple away, leaving Lucas and Bradley squared off. Lucas, measured as ever, turned to Bradley. "There's no need to threaten passengers. We have procedures. Your job is to keep people safe, not to intimidate them." Bradley crossed his arms. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Lucas frowned. "I've dealt with people like you before, those who enjoy misusing power." Now, he was cut off by the arrival of Thomas Grant, a TSA supervisor in his 50s, exuding a calm authority. Thomas surveyed the scene and demanded to know what was happening. Lucas briefly described Bradley's threats, while Bradley sneered. Thomas took a firm stance. "Officer Jones, we've been over the protocols for secondary checks. You know that raising your voice and threatening detention is not how we handle random screenings." Bradley slammed a fist against the counter. "I don't need a lecture. Where I used to work, we handled threats our own way." Lucas shook his head. "This isn't your old place. This is Montgomery Hughes. We follow a strict code of conduct. I also happen to be a director here, and so does Mr. Grant as your TSA supervisor. Either you comply, or there will be consequences." Bradley stared daggers at Lucas. "This is ridiculous. You're accusing me of violating rules just because I'm doing my job, or because you don't like how I'm tough on passengers." Thomas Grant kept his voice level. "Officer Jones, I'm asking you to step away from this checkpoint for an hour to cool down. I'll assign someone else here, and we'll settle this matter through the proper channels." Bradley scowled, grumbling under his breath before stomping away. Lucas knew the standoff was far from over. Even though he'd diffused it for the moment, he sensed Bradley Jones was the type to seek revenge when cornered. After temporarily resolving the showdown at Terminal C, Lucas made his way to the International Conference Lounge for a meeting with two European airline executives. As he passed rows of retail shops, coffee kiosks, and the unending stream of travelers, he couldn't help but recall his own childhood experiences, the times he had been wrongfully singled out in stores, or how his friends were often assumed guilty simply for their skin color. Each memory fueled his determination. He was now in a position to stop such abuses. Even so, entering the conference lounge, Lucas switched to a professional air. He greeted Mr. Heinrich Bauer and Ms. Isabelle Dupont, high-ranking representatives of the European airline, along with an interpreter. He apologized for his slight delay. "My apologies for being a few minutes late. There was an urgent incident at security." Ms. Dupont replied with an understanding smile. "We understand. Busiest airports tend to have occasional disruptions." The meeting focused on negotiating new routes, landing fees, and the allocation of check-in counters. Well prepared with data, Lucas discussed passenger volumes, growth projections, and mutual benefits. Still, the image of Bradley Jones's furious glare lingered in his mind. He worried that the officer might continue harassing travelers or even target Lucas himself. Nevertheless, Lucas pressed on, successfully wrapping up the negotiations within an hour, earning nods of approval from Mr. Bauer and Ms. DuPont. As Ms. DuPont concluded, she emphasized, "We'd be happy to expand our operations here, provided the airport maintains a secure, welcoming environment." Lucas responded with a firm handshake. "That's our commitment." Exiting the meeting room, Lucas received a call from an unknown number. He picked up. "Lucas Morgan speaking." Silence greeted him at first. Then a low, rough voice said, "You'd do well to keep your nose out of other people's business. You're not welcome here, newbie." Then the line went dead. Lucas's heart raced. It was likely Bradley Jones. If he had begun calling with threats, things were escalating. Suddenly, a text message from a hidden number popped up. "Check security footage at Gate 37 from 7:00 to 8:00 a.m. You'll find what you need." Lucas felt a chill. Someone was covertly helping him gather evidence. He immediately contacted Maggie at the Security Control Center. "Maggie, I need the Gate 37 camera feed from 7:00 to 8:00 a.m. Please send me the secure link." Minutes later, Lucas reviewed the footage. There, in grainy silence, stood Bradley Jones once again, physically blocking a black man in a striped shirt. The passenger held out his boarding pass and ID, only for Bradley to keep jabbing a finger in his face, forcing him backward in obvious intimidation. The passenger eventually retreated, and Bradley struck the scanner in anger. Lucas exhaled heavily. "This is systematic abuse. He's zeroing in on people of color or anyone who looks different." He knew this ran deeper than just one or two outbursts. Realizing the seriousness, Lucas made an urgent appointment with Ethan Carter, the head of security, a stern but fair ex-National Guard officer with 15 years of experience. Ethan valued facts above all else. In his secure office in the administrative area, Ethan listened to Lucas's account, the Terminal C confrontation, the footage at Gate 37, plus the threatening phone call. With every sentence, Ethan's jaw tightened. "Lucas, clearly we can't tolerate this. I've heard rumors of misconduct by Bradley Jones before, but never had solid proof. Now we have video and statements, and, Lucas lowered his voice. "I'm concerned he'll continue harassing people, or maybe even come after me. We'll launch a formal internal investigation. Because he's a security officer with certain law enforcement credentials, we must follow protocol. But if we confirm he's been abusing his position, we'll suspend him, possibly terminate him. Meanwhile, I'll reassign him to desk duty. If he makes further threats, the airport police will handle it." Lucas felt relief wash over him. With Ethan standing beside him, he had the institutional support to clamp down on Bradley's bullying. Over the next week, Lucas and Ethan, alongside a discreet team, gathered more evidence. They combed through CCTV footage of various gates where Bradley had been on duty, searched for any official passenger complaints, and matched them to suspicious, random screenings. The pattern was alarming. Most singled-out passengers were either persons of color or non-native English speakers. Working under Lucas's guidance, Sandra Lee interviewed Jamal Peterson, the young black man seen on the Gate 37 footage. He recounted, "I was just on a short business trip. My ID and ticket were totally valid. Yet Officer Bradley made me remove my shoes and belt 3 separate times. When I asked why, he yelled at me to shut up and comply. It was humiliating. I was scared I'd be arrested for no reason." Another traveler, Florence Kim, originally from Korea, explained that her English wasn't fluent. Bradley had shouted at her, mocking her accent. She felt mortified and burst into tears. Since then, she dreaded air travel. Reading their testimonies made Lucas's blood boil. He recalled how he too had faced such belittling treatment in his youth. Now in his role, he was determined no one else should endure such indignities. He and his team carefully archived each statement, each video clip, and every call log into a comprehensive case file for Ethan to use. While the internal investigation proceeded, Bradley Jones was reassigned to desk duty monitoring security cameras. He wore a constant scowl and hurled glares at Lucas and Sandra whenever they crossed paths. Lucas even overheard him cursing at times. One evening, as Lucas left the airport for the day, he spotted Bradley loitering in the employee parking lot. Bradley's silhouette fell ominously across the pavement. His voice dripped with menace. "Morgan, you really don't know who you're messing with." Lucas clenched his fists but forced himself to stay calm. "I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't try to scare me. The investigation is official." Bradley scoffed. "You think you can bring me down? TSA runs this place. People like me know how to dig up dirt. Watch your back." Lucas exhaled through clenched teeth. "You can threaten me all you like, but remember there are cameras everywhere. You should head home." His heart hammered long after he left. However, he was resolute. He would neither back down nor be bullied into silence. He prayed the airport's leadership would stand with him for the sake of every innocent traveler. 2 weeks later, Ethan Carter finished compiling the investigation report. The evidence clearly showed how Bradley Jones abused his authority, intimidated travelers, and targeted people of color or those with limited English. Additionally, his blatant hostility toward Lucas was well documented. Following protocol, the airport convened a formal hearing, including representatives from the Airport Management Board, the Security Officers Union, and legal counsel. The hearing took place in the executive conference room on the 5th floor of the main terminal, a space arranged like a modest courtroom, with a long table for the board, a seat for the accused, and rows for witnesses. Lucas arrived early, nerves fluttering. This was the first time he would publicly accuse a security officer of discrimination and threatening behavior. Bradley strode in moments later, uniform neatly pressed, badge gleaming, accompanied by a union lawyer. Spotting Lucas, he glared with cold fury. Among the seated witnesses were Jamal Peterson, Florence Kim, and other complainants. Sandra Lee sat nearby, giving Lucas a reassuring nod. "We've got all the evidence we need, boss. We'll be fine." Roberta Wilkins, a senior board member presiding over the hearing, stated, "We are assembled to review allegations of serious misconduct against Officer Bradley Jones. We ask everyone to remain orderly." Thomas Grant and Ethan Carter presented their findings, referencing footage, passenger statements, and official logs. Then, one by one, the affected passengers testified about how Bradley had singled them out, shouting or threatening them. Several became emotional, recalling their fear and helplessness. Bradley's union lawyer tried to rebut, suggesting he was acting in the name of airport security, but the video clips left little room for doubt. Eventually, Roberta Wilkins called Lucas. Taking a deep breath, Lucas faced the board. "My name is Lucas Morgan, Director of Passenger Relations. I personally witnessed Officer Jones threatening a middle-aged couple at Terminal C, publicly berating them. When I intervened, he threatened to have me removed, despite my identifying myself and my position. He later called my office, issuing warnings. His intimidation undermines traveler safety and morale." Lucas paused, then fixed his gaze on Bradley. "In our airport, fairness and respect are non-negotiable. We can't allow any officer to wield power like a weapon, especially against those who are vulnerable." A cold hush fell over the room. Bradley clenched his jaw while his lawyer urged him to stay quiet. Afterward, Ms. Wilkins declared, "We will recess for a closed session discussion. Officer Jones, remain available." Tension hung like a thick cloud, while the board deliberated for nearly an hour. Outside, Bradley glared murderously at Lucas, who held his composure despite an undercurrent of dread. He reminded himself, "I'm doing the right thing." When the board reconvened, Ms. Wilkins spoke in a grave tone. After reviewing the video footage, witness statements, and the reports from Mr. Carter and Mr. Grant, This board concludes that Officer Bradley Jones grossly violated the airport's code of conduct, engaged in intimidation, and exhibited discriminatory behavior. Furthermore, his direct threats against Director Morgan and multiple passengers are unacceptable. Based on these findings, we hereby terminate Bradley Jones's employment at Montgomery Hughes International Airport, effective immediately. A collective murmur spread through the room. Bradley's face turned from pale to red with rage. "You've all conspired against me! This is a witch hunt!" He ripped the badge off his uniform and threw it down. "You'll regret this!" Dragging him away, the union representative tried to prevent further outbursts. The heavy door slammed shut, leaving the room silent. Then relief flooded the space. Some witnesses let out sighs of gratitude, hugging each other. Lucas felt as though a weight had been lifted from his chest. Ms. Wilkins offered him a small nod. "Thank you for your courage in pursuing this case, Mr. Morgan. We apologize for the personal risks you faced. This decision underlines our commitment to zero tolerance for harassment or discrimination." Lucas's voice shook slightly with emotion. "I appreciate the board's swift action. I believe we can only move forward if we defend our principles." Ethan Carter escorted Bradley out of the building. Word of his termination spread quickly across the airport, where employees breathed a collective sigh of relief. Passengers who had suffered under his intimidation felt vindicated. The tide had turned. No uniformed bully would be allowed to abuse their position here again. Following that climactic day, word of Bradley Jones's firing traveled throughout the airport. Employees who once stayed quiet out of fear of retaliation began sharing stories of his intimidation tactics. Now they felt empowered to speak out, seeing that the system had backed them. Lucas and Ethan introduced a series of new training sessions for security staff, focusing on de-escalation, cultural sensitivity, and updated procedures for random checks to avoid unconscious bias. They also created a fast-track complaint channel, enabling passengers to quickly report any misconduct. Within weeks, complaints dropped sharply, and travelers praised Montgomery Hughes for its transparent, respectful approach. One afternoon, Ethan burst into Lucas's office with a grin. "We're at a record low for security complaints." Lucas glanced at the latest report. "That's great news. Though I'm relieved, it's sobering to think it took a crisis like Bradley Jones for the system to really scrutinize itself." Ethan nodded. "Sometimes it takes a big shakeup to make meaningful reforms." They shared a moment's quiet reflection. Beyond the windows, jet engines roared. Lucas pictured tens of thousands of passengers with their hopes, dreams, and everyday anxieties. His role was to make sure no one left the airport feeling belittled or threatened. With Bradley gone and better systems in place, a new dawn was rising at Montgomery Hughes. News spread fast of how the airport had ousted an abusive security officer. Staff who once felt undervalued realized they could trust management to defend them from unfair treatment. The corporate culture shifted. Small but meaningful transformations appeared daily, from more courteous greetings at the checkpoint to additional languages and signage. Lucas worked with Ethan on a joint TSA airport initiative to refine random screening protocols and retrain staff, ensuring no prejudiced personal bias slipped through. Meanwhile, the international airlines finalized new routes. The airport was steadily growing in size and reputation. Through it all, Lucas maintained a hands-on approach, walking corridors, listening to passenger feedback, and leading by example. Many believed the place felt friendlier and safer because of his influence. One afternoon, as Lucas was headed to Terminal D to inspect a newly installed PA system, receptionist Mariana called him over. "Sir, there's a package for you, no return address." Inside was a small box adorned with a sticker of an airplane. He lifted the lid to find a ceramic mug with the words, "Thank you for standing up," printed on the side. Underneath lay a short note. "I can't reveal my name, but thanks to what you did, My Latina daughter no longer fears being singled out at security. Thank you for showing people like us that justice still exists." Lucas stared at the note, a warmth spreading through his chest. For someone who rarely wept, he now found himself blinking away tears. This modest token was proof of the difference he had made. The saga of Bradley Jones and Lucas Morgan went far beyond a random brush at security. It was a catalyst for widespread reflection. How abuses of power can poison an institution, and how swiftly injustices can multiply if left unchecked. But it also showcased the power of one individual to speak out and spark broader change. If even airport personnel can be held accountable for bias, there's hope for society at large. At Montgomery Hughes, new airline gates opened, more shops sprang up, and expansions loomed on the horizon. Yet behind that constant bustle, a cultural shift was taking place. Security checkpoints were more welcoming, staff more conscientious. Everyone understood. No badge or title could justify discrimination. Lucas, for his part, never forgot his own childhood experiences. Every day, he reminded himself that his job wasn't merely about public relations, but about guardianship, using his authority to safeguard those at risk of being silenced or mistreated. As long as he held this position, he'd fight to keep the airport an inclusive haven where all deserved dignity. Final thought. Let this tale remind us all. Whenever we see injustice, we must speak up. The uniform an individual wears or the power they wield doesn't place them above basic human respect. If enough of us unite in truth and compassion, no intimidation can stand. The ripples of one principled stand will go beyond any airport's gates, inspiring a more equitable world for everyone.